It's been a while since I talked about the coronavirus, so let's get into it a little bit. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so before I get into that, let me just give you a quick reminder that you can send me any comments, questions, or suggestions at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDario_World. Also, that the Marvel Madness tournament is still up on Rock 105.3 right now. Apparently, I was wrong. Round 3 started today, and it ends on Friday. You can vote right now. I'll probably break that down, I don't know, maybe tomorrow and get some votes in. But yeah, Round 3, check it out there. I believe would be Round 3 is to select the Sweet 16, or is it the Sweet 16? I think so. Anyway, doesn't matter. So yeah, vote there, rock1053.com, click Marvel Madness, you'll find it right there. Anywho, so I haven't talked about the coronavirus thing in a while, and the last thing I did, besides saying that, it canceled everything, is that I predicted it would probably end around, the whole lockdown thing would probably end in around the middle of April, which is where we are exactly right now. So I figured it's time for an update. But I need to say this right off the bat. I'm probably a lot more optimistic and a lot more sanguine in a lot of things. So this is going to try to, put. I've seen in the news a lot of negative stuff. I'm trying to collect all the good news that I've seen, and try to cut some of the noise that I've noticed throughout the last few months now. It's been a couple of months. So first off, the social distancing thing seems to have worked. We've spread out the curve, we flattened it, which is exactly what we needed to do. Now, apparently, at least in California, it seems that we have the medical equipment necessary to deal with the actual pandemic if it, ends up hitting in full force, which is exactly what we intended to do, right? That was the plan. However, there's a lot of things that I don't really understand why the government is doing it. And the big thing that came from Governor Newsom the other day, that's the governor of California, is that, the first thing is that we'll be able to open things up once we're able to contact trace this thing, meaning that if I have it, you'll be able to trace who I got it from and then who they got it from. So basically, they first off, it's a massive invasion of privacy, but I mean, for let's say in case of a very deadly pandemic, let's say you're cool with it. I'm really not cool with it, but whatever. Let's assume that you are. That is really not doable at this point because, as far as I understand, the disease is now communal, meaning that it's out there. Contact tracing is, first off, not really useful at this point because, again, communal. Second, not really possible. Like, go grab the nearest penny that's to you, like, and figure out where you got it from, or figure out the last 3 people who touched that penny before you. It's very, very difficult, nigh impossible, especially because now it's communal. It's out there. So that really seemed unrealistic to me. And so I decided to start going through, all the numbers, all the data that I found. And I found, first off, that the model that we've been using, which is the model that they've been using to predict how many deaths and all that stuff, the death numbers have been lowering substantially. It was like 200,000, then 100,000, then 96, then 80, then 60, within a matter of days, right? Like, we went from 90,000 to 60,000 in like 2 days, and maybe 3, which is a lot. It's 30%. Imagine you lose 30% of anything in a couple of days. It's considerable. So the numbers have been going down dramatically, and so the University of Sydney, I believe, decided to make a study on the model that we were using, and basically it realized that the model we were using was it was very flawed. I'm not going to say they claimed it was bullshit, but they say that it's very flawed for several reasons. And so, all right, so the modeling that we've been using is probably the worst case scenario model. And the more data that we get, the more that we realize that, maybe it wasn't as bad. Also, coupled with the fact that we've been social distancing. Now, a good way to actually see how this is going to play out is looking at what's happening in other countries. Because in the U.S. right now, it's super political, and everybody's trying to get political points one way or another. But if you see what the things that are happening worldwide, you get a much clearer picture of the things that are happening. And a place that there were several theories of how this could work. One theory is you just locked everything down, which is what the U.S. did, and hope we survive it. And another thing that other countries did, well, particularly Sweden, what Sweden did is, all right, we locked down our most vulnerable, the elderly, the people with autoimmune disease and all that stuff. We locked them down. Everybody else just social distance a little, meaning that if you go to a restaurant, you can't eat at the bar anymore, but you can still have your own individual table stuff like that. And, try to not lick other people's faces and stuff like that. So far, it seems like Sweden's numbers have been very similar to the rest of Europe, and so, but I mean, Sweden has certain advantages that it hit them during winter, and people weren't already going out during winter as much in Sweden as they would do in, let's say, California. But it's funny because California has actually not been hit hard at all, and I guess one of the big things here is that California is very spread out. And not everybody, but most people actually drive cars to work. So you're isolated. You're not really touching each other. It's not like New York where you have the subway where everybody's touching the same thing. So that's an advantage that we have here. And so we have to start figuring out how are we going to open up stuff depending on where we are. I think California's in a really good spot because we're about to be hit by summer. It's actually starting to get pretty warm over here. And studies have shown that the virus is it's actually affected by temperature. Like it survives way less than it should. So here's where things start getting interesting. Again, so just to reiterate, the things that we have been seeing throughout the world is that the numbers are going down in general, right? Throughout the world. This is true in Europe. So we probably already hit our peak. That's the most likely scenario. We already hit the peak. A scientist from Israel, I believe that he says that we've already hit the culmination of the virus. It's probably on its way out, again, in general, because viruses apparently have particular types of viruses have like a certain lifespan, and so it doesn't. There's never been a case of a virus that keeps hitting the world over and over again, and so it's probably already lived through what it's going to live through. There's also been another interesting study that says that the whole coronavirus thing might have been hitting people in California all the way back in February. So it's possible that we already had coronavirus cases in California in February. We just didn't know what it was. And so, that's been my prediction based on if you guys remember, way back in February, way back in February, after the 10th anniversary show, the crew got sick for a week. And Thor still has a lingering cough. And so, based off of of some of the symptoms and based off of the cough still being there, it's very likely that maybe they got corona all the way back then. We just didn't know what it was. Just thought it was a normal cold. It's possible. Is it probable? I don't know, but it's possible. And so the thing here is, and there's another study from New York that what they did is they went to the pregnancy ward? Is that how it's called? Yeah, and so they started randomly testing for coronavirus not randomly, they tested every single person in the pregnancy ward, every single mother, expectant mother there, to see if they had the virus, for the babies and all that stuff for their health. And what they realized is that of the people that had symptoms, I believe something like 13% of them came back positive, right? But out of the people that were showing symptoms, 7 times the number wasn't showing any symptoms. So let's just say, what was it, 13%? Right. So let's just say, to keep it simple, if 2% of the patients, if they tested 100 people and 2 of them had symptoms and they tested positive, that means that 14 of them tested positive but had no symptoms, meaning that there's a lot of asymptomatic people out there. There's the silent carriers is what they call them. But we need to figure out how many of the silent carriers are out there. Because if you're a silent carrier, that means that you probably already have the antibodies for it. It means that you're probably okay. It didn't affect you at all. And so according to, again, this is just one study in one place, but if for every person that actually does need to go to the hospital or actually does present symptoms, they didn't even say how severe the symptoms were. But for every person that presents symptoms, that means that there's 7 people out there who are asymptomatic, meaning that they don't even feel it. That means that there's a pretty big chance here that we're in the clear. And at least there's a lot of people out there that should be in the clear. And so then we start going into, all right, who are the people who are most at risk? That's what we need to know. If it's random, then it's still risky. But what are the things that what are the common denominators? And so the most common factor that they found on actually having to go to the hospital for the coronavirus is obesity. So throughout the board, throughout the world, if you're obese, this is not good for you. And I don't mean overweight, I mean obese. So that's bad. There's also diabetes. There's also underlying, like if you had cancer, underlying health conditions. If you're over 80, stuff like that, the numbers aren't good for you. Everybody else seems to be it. There's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, you're fine. I think mathematically speaking, the odds of you dying in a car crash to work are higher than you actually being affected by the coronavirus. Now, there's also the risk that this might be that if you get the coronavirus, it might cause you permanent lung damage and stuff like that. We don't know, but that's a risk that people have to decide if they want to take. And now here's where things actually get interesting, and here's where the conundrum is, at least from the way I'm looking at it. And actually, it hit me yesterday. Now, I need to clarify this. My life not really been affected that much by the whole coronavirus thing. I mean, one of my jobs is on hiatus, and most of my friends are like not in good situations. And by the way, I'm not talking about Mexico right now. I could do a whole thing about how things are really going to hit the fan in Mexico. But I'll probably save that. I'll probably do a Spanish podcast for that. Might be good to make a comeback for it. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, this is strictly the U.S. So my life really hasn't been affected that much. I mean, like I said, still going to work. I have more than enough entertainment here at home. I've always been kind of a loner anyway. It doesn't really bother me. I can very easily entertain myself. I have more than enough stuff to catch up on. I've been fine, mostly. And like I said, but even I'm still starting to feel it. And it hit me yesterday kind of why. And I have to go back a little bit. Before, when I first moved into the current apartment that I'm living in, an elderly neighbor approached us, and he said, I remember the way that he opened it. It's like, he just walked up to us and like, so this is how this works here. And I remember hating his guts from that moment on. I was like, fuck you. Who the hell are you to tell me anything? So I walked away from that conversation because I was still carrying stuff, and I left my kid brother and my mom, who was helping us move, to deal with him. Turns out that here in the building, it's like 4 apartments, and so what they used to do is every single week is they rotate basically weekly who takes out the trash. So you only have to do it once a week, and you take out all of them, and you bring them all back. I hated that system. I loathed that system, first off, because I did not appreciate the way he approached us, and he basically tried to impose it on us, but also because it seemed like way more work for me. We don't create as much trash as other people do. We do 1, maybe 2 bags a week. So to me, it just seemed easier. Like, I just got these 2 very light bags, put them there, I'll walk them out on my trash can. I'll be nice, and I'll even take out one of the recycling ones and leave it out and bring them back once a week. Way easier, way faster. I don't have to be touching other people's trash. I don't like it. Everybody just take care of themselves. I hated it. And so after that person moved out, it was like, all right, that system's over. We're done. Because my siblings asked me to not make a big deal out of it. I just complained internally, and I really, really hated it. And so then we, that person moved out, and we went to, like, everybody does their own thing. And so yesterday, I took out the trash, and I realized that I used to hate doing the trash. I hated it, loathed it entirely. But it didn't really bother me. In fact, I even did it on automatic. Got home from work, bagged everything up, took it out, walked it out. Simple, easy, no problem. And that's when it hit me that the thing here was that I chose to do it. It wasn't somebody else telling me I had to do it. It wasn't anything. It was my choice. And so things are way more comfortable for most people when it's your choice. Let's transfer that and that's when I started thinking about, like, the whole lockdown thing. And so when you don't have information, when you're scared, when you don't want to take a risk that might actually end up collapsing the whole society as a whole, you understand taking harsh measures. You understand the lockdown. You understand things being rammed down your throat. Even if you don't like it, you can understand it. You can make the sacrifice, especially if the sacrifice is being sold to you like we're not doing this out of fear. We're doing this out of love for the people who are most at risk, right? We do this because we want to protect them. However, as new data comes out, as more information comes out, people are like, yeah, you know what? at some point, I think that people should be able to take care of themselves. Like, how much I can sacrifice a little bit, but how much are you asking me to give up? People have given up their jobs. People have given up their livelihoods. People have given up their freedoms. I saw a story the other day of a person who was there was a group of protesters in Raleigh, North Carolina, and a woman got arrested. Now, we have a thing called the First Amendment here, and supposedly protesting is protected by the First Amendment, and this person got arrested. And from what I read, it wasn't even a violent protest. It was loud because you're protesting, but they got arrested for protesting. Now, I get it, you're not supposed to be gathering in large groups, but still, I don't think that one thing should supersede the First Amendment, right? Especially if it's your choice. If you just want to get out there and work, you want to get out there and get money. I saw another story that one of the biggest meat packaging plants in the U.S. got closed. They make something like 8% of the meat in the country. We're close to that, 6% maybe. Closed down. So there's food shortages in certain areas already. There's going to be a meat shortage. There's going to be the food banks. Have you seen pictures or video of the lines of food banks everywhere? So are you going to ask people let's say, for example, somebody in my position, right? I am in my early 30s, so I'm young. I'm relatively healthy. I'm in shape. I don't have any underlying conditions that I know of. So the risks for me is less than 1%. That'll even need to be hospitalized for this thing. So you're going to ask me to give up what? Food? Money I can understand. I can understand taking a financial hit for saving lives. But if you're making me choose between eating and the possibility of infecting somebody else, the math is pretty easy. One thing's for sure. You were reaching the point, and it's probably the stimulus thing is probably going to help, especially if it's hitting this week. It'll probably give us another week. But bills are still coming, and people need to eat every day. People need to feed their kids. So the option is becoming and this is not for everyone. It's very easy for the haves to tell the have-nots to make a sacrifice. But there's a problem when there's nothing else that you can sacrifice, right? That there's a limit to how much you can ask. Very easy for a have to ask a have-not. The have-nots, there's a limit to how much they will take, and I think we've reached that limit in several areas of the country. Again, California is still pretty safe. California is a giant food bowl. We'll be fine on food. I'm talking about the rest of the country. Also, we're pretty lucky on weather. It's not very humid, and apparently this thing does not do that well with humidity. No, well, it doesn't do that well in not humid weather, and we're pretty spread out. But again, now the choice is very quickly becoming the possibility of infecting yourself, the possibility of infecting somebody you love, versus the certainty of death by hunger, okay? One is a possibility, one is a certainty. The math is always going to win in one direction. People will always choose not to fucking starve, all right? You can't ask somebody to sacrifice that much. And if you want to take it to another extreme, people will kill for food, all right? Have you ever seen a hungry person? I don't mean like, oh, I'm hangry, I haven't eaten a day. I mean somebody who hasn't eaten in maybe a week, right? They won't think anymore. The only thing they'll be thinking about is food. They won't care about you. They won't care about anything. So, fortunately, we're not there yet, but that's where we're reaching, and I don't think that this is sustainable anymore. We've reached the point where it's like, all right, we did what we could do. We prepared people. Here's the thing. There's only so much the government can do. The federal government. There's only so much the state government can do. There's a point where you just have to take your life in your own hands. It's your choice. Like you can choose to walk out with a mask. You can choose to use gloves. You can social distance. You can do as much as you can to stay, or you can choose. Yeah, and you can choose. All right. I know that I'm in a risky age. I know that I'm risky stuff, so I'll just stay home. We have to reach the point where it's our choice. And so if we choose to stay home, it's our choice to stay home. But things will probably open up. I think that the stimulus package gave us this week, maybe next week. But I do think that I don't think it'll last longer than that. I don't think that it's sustainable. I don't think that we can take it anymore. I don't think people can take it anymore. Like I said, my life has barely been affected by this, and even I'm starting to feel it. So I can't even imagine the people that have to feed their kids and they don't know where they're going to get the food. I don't know where they're going to get the money for it, because the stimulus package was pretty sweet, but it's not going to be enough, right? Again, hunger is going to be the deciding factor here. Desperation and losing 30 million jobs in 2 months is a doozy, to say the least. So I think that restrictions will go down and things will start opening up. If you're trying to, I'm trying to look at the bright side here, and I think things will start opening up by the end of next week, because I think we're going to get a lot of data this week. We should be getting a lot of data from the antibodies test, and that's honestly going to be the biggest factor here. If people have already had it and they didn't even know, then cool, walk around. You're immune. You can do something. You can go back to work. It won't affect you. Then we will probably start doing what Sweden did. Like the young and healthy people, you can still go out, go to work, do whatever you want. Maybe social distance a little if you want to. Wear gloves, wear masks. But it's your choice now, and you choose if you want to risk it or not. We choose. So I think we're going to reach that point. Like I said, they might have bought a week, but if you're looking for a silver lining, I think that this whole lockdown thing will end by not this Friday, next Friday. At least for those who choose to no longer be a part of this, right? It's like, all right, it's your choice. You're an adult. We've set up the hospitals to be able to respond. We have the equipment here. We have everything. It's your life, right? At one point, it's like your life. You take control of it. You're an adult here. I believe most of us are adults here. It's going to be tricky with schools and stuff like that, because schools are basically giant, germ factories. And so then when little kids, then they're all over each other. There's no way to make kids not touch each other. And then they go over to grandma and grandpa. So maybe those kids will have to still be homeschooled or something. It's not going to be perfect. This is going to be kind of messy, but I think we're reaching the end of it. Pretty sure, especially the more numbers that I see, the more that I see that absolutely every single model has been wrong, the more that we see that more people have had it than not. It was okay. I can't say that it was a bad response to take it so drastically from the beginning. But now is the time when we're like, okay, it's time for you to make the choice, right? If this thing becomes the odds of getting it are lower than dying in a car crash, then what are we doing anymore? Honestly, okay, so if it's deadlier to drive to work, then what are you going to start banning cars too? By the way, but cars are the thing that are actually keeping more people healthy. Hospitals are actually trying to go out of business because of this, because we're not doing regular surgeries, which is actually what gives hospitals money. People are dying because they're not getting the surgeries that they need. So it's I know that the doctors, I know the scientists will be like, no, when the epidemiologist will be like, no, we can't do this yet, because they're looking at it in a vacuum. All right, they're looking and the problem is that nobody's an expert on everything. There's always going to be, once you put things out of a vacuum and you put it into the real world, there's unexpected consequences for absolutely everything. Like one of my favorite examples is that climate change and all the CO2 in the atmosphere and how it's killing us and all that stuff. Well, one of the unexpected consequences for that is that we have the largest number of trees in the history of humanity, in the U.S. at least, and we had record-breaking crops year after year. Why? Because plants eat CO2. That was unexpected. Nobody really expected it except botanists, but nobody was asking botanists about this stuff. So, again, once you put things out in the real world and out of the vacuum, in the vacuum they might be right 100% of the time. Out of the vacuum, into the real world where it's messy, where it's dirty, you can no longer predict it. The models have been proven wrong time after time after time. Studies are proving that the models were wrong time after time. We've gotten wrong. The data that we started working on, that we started doing all this on from China, was wrong. The WHO has been very, very clearly been on their pocket for a very long time. So to reiterate, I'm not a doctor. Not a scientist. Well, technically I am a scientist. I have a Bachelor of Science. Not a idiot. Not an expert in all that stuff. I've just been reading the data. I've been reading the numbers, and going with my gut feeling, and also trying to be an optimist here. Silver lining. Again, we're trying to look for the silver lining here. I do believe that we're at the tail end of it. I do believe that things will start going back to normal by next week. Like, honestly, I think May will be slowly... I think May, the decision will start falling on our hands. It'll no longer be the government. It'll not be anybody else. It'll be your life, your hands. You do whatever you want. If you want to go back to work, or if you want to try to go back to work, or if you think you're high risk and want to stay at home, you're going to stay at home. But it's going to be our choice. At least that's my prediction. I don't know what you think. That's just my 2 cents. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it made you feel better. Hopefully it didn't really infuriate you. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDarioPeriodWorld. Also, remember to vote. Rock1053.com, the Marble Madness bracket. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.